Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Let's just jump right in today. We're tackling a universal tension in the professional world, that tricky gap between what you actually know and how you actually work. To do this, we're going to follow the story of a recent college grad named Alex. He's eager, he's full of potential, and he's about to figure out the hard way that what gets your foot in the door, well, it isn't always what keeps you in the room. Okay, let's dive into this. The entire core of today's explainer really boils down to one massive divide: getting hired versus getting ahead. You see, when Alex started his job hunt, he stumbled upon what looked like his absolute dream job. But the posting asked for a tricky balance of two very different things: measurable technical skills on one side and highly nuanced interpersonal skills on the other. Navigating that specific demand, that is literally the tightrope walk of building a successful career. So we'll start where Alex felt the most secure: his hard skills. Think of these as the table stakes of getting a job. They're the concrete, measurable things you slap on a resume just to make it past the recruiters. When Alex read that job description, he thought, boom, I've got the technical requirements totally covered. He knew he could prove his worth on paper. So he confidently shot off his application and, no surprise here, he scored an interview. And let me tell you, Alex walked into that interview packing a seriously impressive technical arsenal. The guy was an absolute wizard with Excel. He was highly trained in data analysis, built gorgeous presentations, and could navigate graphic design software like an absolute pro. So armed with all of that, he shows up early, totally polished, and effortlessly breezes through a short computer test right at the start of the interview. Boom, technical worth proven right on the spot. The manager? Oh, she was impressed. She smiles, validates his test, but then the whole vibe in the room just shifts. She looks right at him and says, okay, your hard skills are great. Now let's talk about how you work with people. Tell me about your communication skills. And just like that, our super confident protagonist feels this massive wave of panic. Right here, we are officially pivoting from the comfortable, safe hard skills test to the dreaded rapid-fire behavioral test. Alex had to think on his feet, right? He takes a deep breath and starts explaining how he regularly presented complex projects in his college classes. But, and this is key, he didn't just stop at the talking part. He delivered a really crucial insight by focusing on the other, honestly often forgotten half of communication. He told the manager how he actively worked to become a better, more empathetic listener. The manager nods, but hey, absolutely no time to relax here. The pacing of this interview is incredibly fast. Without missing a single beat, she fires off the next question, asking him to break down his experience with teamwork and collaboration. Now, we hear these buzzwords all the time, right? But they actually have a really distinct nuance. Teamwork is the overarching goal of operating effectively with others, while collaboration, well, that's the tactical, roll-up-your-sleeves effort of actually combining different ideas. Alex showed he totally got this. He shared this great story about a wildly chaotic college project where everyone had completely clashing ideas. But they managed to pull it off by dividing up responsibilities, supporting each other, and collaborating closely to literally beat the clock and hit their deadline. Okay, so the manager is pleased, but the questions are starting to get a lot more situational, and you can feel the tension building up. She sharply pivots again and asks, so what if something completely unexpected happened at work? And this brilliantly illustrates where theoretical concepts are actually tested in the real world. Alex replies that he really leans on his adaptability and problem solving. To prove it, he tells her about that universally terrifying moment, we've all been there, when his group's presentation file completely vanished the night before a massive class. But instead of panicking or pointing fingers, he stayed flexible. He stayed up into the early hours of the morning with his teammates to rebuild the entire presentation from scratch and get it in on time. The rhythm of this back and forth just kept going. The manager is clearly trying to test the true depth of Alex's character here, so she moves straight into the next set of heavy-hitting skills: leadership and time management. Luckily, Alex had a great answer totally ready to go. He broke down exactly how he managed to balance school, a part-time job, and his family responsibilities by keeping this highly structured, basically ruthless calendar. On top of that, he proved his leadership by talking about how he'd frequently volunteer to step up, organize those really tricky group projects, and keep his classmates laser-focused on the finish line. Let's just pause for a second on a great idiom the manager used right here. After hearing all of these really thoughtful answers, she smiles and tells Alex, "It sounds like you're learning the ropes." This was a massive moment of validation for him. It was an acknowledgement that he was genuinely grasping the underlying mechanics of how professional life works. Relieved, he laughs and humbly replies, "Well, I'm trying."
But the manager had one final test before she could actually make a hiring decision. And honestly, this one was the most critical. She slows down, looks at him, and asks for concrete examples of a time when he showed initiative, reliability, and accountability.
Now, these aren't just corporate buzzwords, guys. They are the absolute pillars of professional maturity, and Alex totally nailed this. For initiative, he talked about this volunteer event where nobody knew how to organize a registration table, so he just jumped in and built a sign-in system. Didn't even wait for permission. For reliability, he kept it simple. If he promises to do something, people know they can count on him. And for accountability, he shared a pretty vulnerable story about making a super costly mistake on a class project. Instead of throwing someone else under the bus, he owned it entirely and worked twice as hard to fix it. The manager was, as you'd guess, deeply impressed. Fast forward a few days, and Alex gets the phone call. He got the job. It's a fantastic moment, absolutely worth celebrating. But, as we all know in the professional world, getting hired is literally just day one. The reality of the job hits him hard a few months later when a massive team project falls dangerously behind schedule. Everyone is panicking, and a brand new challenge emerges. So, faced with this massively delayed project, Alex didn't just hide behind his spreadsheets and wait for someone else to come fix it. Nope, he stepped up to the plate. Rather than sitting around waiting for upper management to give him instructions, he proactively organized a meeting, rallied all his stressed-out coworkers, and facilitated a huge brainstorming session to get the whole project back on track. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that when we lay out his complete professional arsenal like this, we really see the sheer compounding power of everything we've talked about today acting together. Yes, absolutely, he used his hard skills to do the heavy technical lifting. But without professionalism, accountability, and teamwork, all that technical labor wouldn't have actually aligned the team to solve the crisis. It was because he seamlessly combined both sides of his skill set that the project ended up being a total success. So the crucial point is what happened at the end of the year when Alex sat down with his manager for his annual review. The vibe was vastly different from that nerve-wracking first interview. She looks at him and delivers this quote that perfectly captures his whole journey. Your hard skills helped you get hired, but your communication, teamwork, adaptability, leadership, and accountability are what helped you succeed. And that beautifully bookends our Explain It for today. We're right back to the very tension we started with. You can think of hard skills essentially as the engine of a car. They absolutely execute the core mechanics of the job, but they just aren't sufficient on their own. Soft skills are the steering wheel. They're what actually help you navigate crises, build lasting professional relationships, and ultimately steer yourself toward a highly successful long-term career. We've seen how Alex transformed from a candidate who relied purely on his technical abilities into a dynamic professional who really leveraged his character to save the day. So I want to leave you with a provocative question to consider for your own career progression. Which soft skill will you step up to the plate and master next? Whether it's adaptability, leadership, or maybe just learning to be a much better listener, there's always a new skill to add to your arsenal. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to guide you through our next topic.